Well, that's pleasant to hear. We are going to cover a visual novel that blurs the lines between dreams and reality. Written by Ryukishi07, this is a visual novel about curses, and where inner turmoils become the channel for haunting nightmares. This is a tale of a fated meeting from 1,000 years ago, where mankind's sins are brought to judgment. Today, we are going to take a look at Iwaihime. Iwaihime features our main character Susumu as he transfers to the town of Susuda, moving out to live independently. He undergoes daily training to refine his mind and body. Susumu enjoys his life going to school like normal, but he comes across a strange girl, Toei Kurokami. With cold, dead eyes and a lifeless personality, she never lets go of the Japanese doll in her hands. And yet, Susumu can't look away from her for some strange reason. Soon after transferring, Susumu joins a club and meets his fellow classmates. Tsubakiko, a distant relative, Kanae, a hardworking upperclassman, and Ruya, a younger underclassman and local idol, as well as the unusual girl, Toei Kurokami. Could their meetings be a random occurrence, or is it the hand of fate at play? With Iwaihime written by Ryukishi07, the renowned writer for Higurashi When They Cry and Umineko When They Cry, nothing is always as it seems, always having that essence of mystery and nonsensicalness. Iwaihime is structured into chapters, each focusing on a different character and their individual routes. Chapters are short in the beginning, with the narrative having an emphasis on shock value and mystery. Of course, it's that mystery that keeps people intrigued, hoping to find the explanation. My issue with this, however, is that the beginning chapters feel rushed, covering the base premise plot beats to quickly deliver that punchline. Because of this, it's hard to get properly invested in the story due to the visual novel changing character focus too quickly. I also do have reservations about the cohesiveness of the story, as there are moments of disconnects when Iwaihime blends dreams and reality. I found myself thinking about the times I could poke holes in the story about how events tie in sequentially. Characters go through lapses of nightmares that takes readers into their own little world, but when the nightmare ended, I was questioning what exactly happened in reality at that point in time. I understand the concept, but it certainly did have me assuming details every now and again, pushing my suspension of disbelief. Small bits of inconsistency aside, as you read through the visual novel, the story slowly eases you into the intricate big picture behind Iwaihime. And by the halfway point, it finally drops the explanation. At this point, I got a lot more invested into Iwaihime's folklore background. It's a nicely crafted and meaningful folklore setting. And most importantly, Iwaihime puts forth a clear defining objective for our characters to strive after. Unfortunately, because of these traits, character development takes a backseat for the setting to unravel, leaving underwhelming individual character stories for our main cast. I will praise Ryukishi though, for his eerily uncomfortable descriptions used for the nightmarish scenes. There is a highlight on the actual depiction of the hauntings, creating small little worlds of horrific acts and mental insanity. It's written quite well, so when combined with the production, the nightmares become even more unsettling. Now I like Ryukishi07, but I'm not the biggest fan of his unique art style in Higurashi and Umineko. It's an acquired taste! So I was curious to see a visual novel that would have a more refined art style and a production that complemented Ryukishi's writing. Luckily, Iwaihime did that splendidly. Iwaihime really nails the atmospheric horror with its creepy CGs and unnerving audio direction. As I read the detailed depictions of the scene, hearing realistic sounds like a chunk of metal grinding against a mass of meat, crunching bones and flesh, it made me beg for more bloody gore CGs. Which is a first for me to willingly ask as a person who's not a huge fan of horror. Not all of the CGs are visually gory. In fact, while some of the CGs are certainly unsettling, Iwaihime opts for more tamer atmospheric visuals, like pure blood splatters, and vomit all over the screen. There are some ominous CGs in here that are quite fitting, with my favorite parts of the images being the excellent usage of the lighting. And even outside the gruesome scenes, there are some great looking CGs overall. In addition to the haunting visuals, the sound direction greatly added to the unsettling atmosphere, pulling out all of the creepy sound effects out of the bag. From grotesque, unpleasant sounds to unnerving distorted voices, to creepily sadistic voice acting performances, it's a full treat. We are also treated to some wonderful oriental music pieces ranging from the dark supernatural Japanese horror tracks to some serene calming pieces. And now it's time to take a look at the characters in Iwaihime. Susumu is our main protagonist for Iwaihime, and for a kind-hearted passive personality, he really is an honorable and virtuous person. That said, Susumu is the epitome of the "while you were having sex, I was studying the blade" meme. This man is an absolute monk. He could have literally every girl at his feet begging to take him, but nope, he has to go punch a tree for spiritual training. Sex? Who needs that when you can enlighten yourself to God's grace by punching inanimate objects? I praise this man for being capable when it counts, but goddamn, he can be bland whenever he's not saving women with his fist. As for the heroines, Tsubakiko is Susumu's childhood friend that helps him get accustomed to his new environment. She's an energetic and happy individual, but she has a dark secret inside. Her personal story revolves around the confliction between her old personality and her motivation to become a beautiful bride. Kanae is the upperclassman of the fellow club members as well as club president. She's laid back and reserved at times, but she's also a hardworking individual that strives to be independent, and her background follows that dedicated pursuit. Ruria is a younger underclassman of the cast and works as a local idol returning from retirement. Her story deals with the perception of idol celebrities and their image, and the intense mental toll one has from receiving public criticism. As for Toei, she's a central figure in which the entire setting and premise revolves around, and Iwaihime goes at length to further this point. However, there's also a strange disconnect that happens later on because of Toei being the central plot device. It's an unusual and tricky topic to cover, but this disconnect does get acknowledged later in the story. Now, as I said earlier in the review, that in exchange for Iwaihime driving forward the story's folklore background and setting, the characterization was going to take a back seat. Out of all of the characters, Ruria was the only one I felt performed the best. Her ordeals focus on the more individual character and mindset, showing personal struggle against oneself. The other heroines in comparison had relied on external conditions for their internal strife, which made their conflicts and stories weaker. That said, even Ruria's story is not perfect, as I felt there was some concepts from her story that were being repetitive, but compared to the other heroines, I felt it was the best, at least from the main game. Ironically, the DLC was the best arc. There is also an additional story arc to Iwaihime as paid DLC, focusing on the teacher Hinagata Mayu, and it's really worth buying. As an additional heroine, we see that she suffers from the same type of troubles as the other heroines. Since Hinagata is a lot older, her route offers a more experienced perspective compared to the others. We explore deeper into her backstory, and it's nasty. The content depicted here is relentless, brutal, and most of all, painfully relatable. Out of all the stories, this is the one that truly blurs dreams and reality. Her perspective gives a more logical feel to it compared to the others due to her age, but no matter how much Hinagata gets older and how much she steels herself, no one is ever free from hauntings and nightmares, especially if they have a profound psychological effect. Seriously, major props to Hinagata for her mental fortitude. And speaking of mental fortitude, there are already some cruel depictions in here that made me wince, but there's a particular CG in here that is certainly different from the rest, almost crossing into another genre cut from the same horrific cloth, if you know what I mean. Overall, this DLC is a must-buy if you're going to get Iwaihime. It's a route that adds dimension to a character integral to the cast, and while having a couple of narrative hiccups here and there, is a solid character horror story that is arguably the best arc in the whole visual novel. In conclusion, Iwaihime is a solid horror work. Ryukishi's haunting descriptions and the visual novel's art and sound direction complement each other very well. Integrating a deep folklore background, it's an intricate story that taps into the Japanese supernatural horror atmosphere. However, there are a couple of narrative inconsistencies and personally, underwhelming characters that holds it back. Now, do I think this was the best of Ryukishi's writing, or on par with Ryukishi's previous works like Higurashi and Umineko? No, It's the weakest one, but for a story written by Ryukishi that's on the shorter end of the visual novel length, Iwaihime still holds its ground as a solid visual novel overall. I give Iwaihime a 3 out of 5 with a seal of recommendation. Subscribe if you like the video and want to see more. Check back every week for new content. Check out some of my other anime visual novel reviews on my channel if you are interested.